The Apache woman stood at the edge of the ravine, the hem of her worn dress snapping in the wind like a warning flag. She was small, no denying it, but she carried herself with the hard balance of someone who had learned young how easily the earth could take everything back. When the cowboy stepped closer, boots grinding against stone, she turned on him with a look sharp enough to draw blood. "My body's too small, cowboy," she said. "I'm not breeding material." The words were deliberate, chosen not because they were true, but because they ended things. Men understood boundaries better when they were framed as disappointments. For a moment, she expected laughter or a sneer. Instead, he stopped where he was. He looked at her the way men looked at weather, measuring. Cautious, aware that arrogance could kill. "That's a strange thing to lead with," he said. "Then walk away," she answered. He didn't. His eyes, pale and steady, shifted past her shoulder toward the narrowing canyon. The air felt wrong suddenly, too quiet, like the land was holding its breath. She sensed it a second before the sound cracked through the rocks. Rifle fire, sharp and close. She moved, but not fast enough. The cowboy lunged, catching her around the shoulders and dragging her down behind a slab of stone as bullets. Sparked and dust burst where she had been standing. The impact knocked the breath from her chest. His body shielded hers, solid and unmoving. One arm braced against the rock, the other holding her low. She struggled instantly, fury flaring hotter than fear. "I told you not to touch me." "I know," he said, voice calm, almost gentle, even as another shot rang out. "Stay down." Moments stretched thin as the gunfire faded into the distance. When silence finally returned, she shoved him away and scrambled to her feet, eyes blazing. "You don't get to decide for me," she said. "I decided not to watch you die," he replied. There was no triumph in his voice, no claim, just fact. She stared at him, chest rising fast, the canyon wind cooling the heat in her skin. No man had ever held her like that without trying to keep something for himself afterward. This one had already stepped back. For the first time, her certainty wavered, not about her size, but about the rules she'd built to survive. She kept her distance after that, walking ahead of him on the narrow trail as if the space itself were a boundary she could enforce. The land sloped upward into broken hills, and the sun burned low and unforgiving. She moved with quick, economical steps, never wasting effort, never looking back unless she had to. Caleb followed without comment. He did not try to match her pace or question her direction. That, more than anything, unsettled her. By afternoon, the wind shifted, bringing cold down from the high country. Her shoulders tightened as the air bit through her thin clothing, but she refused to slow. Weakness invited questions, and questions invited control. She had learned that long before she learned the names of stars. When they finally stopped near a shallow firebreak, she knelt to gather dry brush. Her fingers were numb, clumsy with cold, and a small tremor betrayed her when she struck flint to stone. She cursed under her breath. The flame caught on the third try. Caleb said nothing. He simply unrolled his bedroll a few paces away and set his pack down. When she glanced up, she saw him place his blanket on a rock between them, close enough to reach, far enough not to intrude. "You'll need it tonight," he said, eyes on the fire, not on her. "I didn't ask," she replied. "I didn't say you did." That ended the exchange. The fire crackled softly as darkness crept in, the sky filling with stars sharp as splinters. The cold worsened. She sat rigid, arms wrapped around herself, jaw clenched against the shaking that grew harder to hide. Pride fought survival, and survival was winning. Eventually, she reached for the blanket without looking at him. It was heavy, warm, smelling faintly of leather and smoke. She wrapped it tight and stared into the flames, waiting for the cost that always came with acceptance. None did. Later, exhaustion pulled her under despite her vigilance. Sleep came in fragments, uneasy and shallow. At some point, she felt herself tilt, balance slipping. She leaned barely against something solid and warm. She froze, ready to bolt, but the support didn't tighten or claim her. It simply remained. Caleb sat awake, gaze fixed on the dark beyond the firelight. He did not move even when his arm went numb. He understood now that holding someone did not mean possession. Sometimes it meant choosing not to act at all. The settlement came into view just before dusk. A scatter of low buildings crouched against the open plain as if expecting trouble. She slowed despite herself, every sense tightening. Places like this carried memories, of stairs that lingered too long, of voices that spoke over hers, of judgments made before she ever opened her mouth. Caleb noticed but said nothing, letting her set the pace as they approached. The first eyes found her immediately. Conversation dipped, then resumed in hushed tones that followed her steps. She felt their weight like grit under the skin, small, Apache, woman, each. Word unspoken but present all the same. A trader near the hitching post laughed too loudly and nudged the man beside him. Didn't know they were bringing children in from the hills now, he said. Caleb shifted forward instinctively, but she raised her hand, palm out, stopping him cold. Her heartbeat was steady. This was not new ground to her. "I am not a child," she said, her voice carrying farther than she expected. "And I brought myself." The trader smirked. "Looks like the wind might carry you off before winter." She stepped closer, closing the space until he had to look down at her. "The wind has tried," she said. "So have men. I am still here." The laughter died. The silence that followed was heavy, uncomfortable. Someone turned away. Another pretended sudden interest in a saddle strap. She let the moment stand, then moved past them as if they were already forgotten. Inside the trading post, business was brief. She negotiated cleanly, sharply, leaving no room for condescension. When they stepped back outside, the sun was sinking, bleeding red into the horizon. Caleb exhaled slowly. "You didn't need me," he said. She glanced at him. "I know." They walked a short distance from the settlement before stopping. The quiet returned, wide and honest. After a moment, he spoke again. "Why did you say that to me?" he asked. "That first day?" She considered the question, the man, the space he had never tried to close. "Because men stop listening when they think you are useful to them," she said. "I wanted you to hear me leave." "And now?" he asked. She met his eyes. "You listened anyway." He nodded as if that answer mattered more than any promise. When he reached out, it was careful, brief, his hand resting at her shoulder before falling away. This time she did not pull back.